Thanks very much for checking out this episode of Turning to Him. If you enjoy what you hear, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave comments, share it with your friends, all the basic stuff. When you do things like that, it makes it easier for other people to find the channel and add goodness into their lives. Thanks again. At some point, music gets back into your life.
Yeah.
Take me there.
Yeah. Very again, the Lord knows us, man. Like that's the bottom line. I so I would still sit down and play at the piano and just kind of jam out. And every once in a while, just from almost muscle memory, I'd come up with a little lick. And like, oh, that would be cool. And I'm like, all right, and riff on that a little bit, and then I would have the thought, that's not going anywhere. I don't have a band. I'm not getting into music again. And so I just like, okay, and so I had multiple things happen, and like I tried to write a couple of songs, but again, it was like trying to get back with that fiance who left you at the altar. And I'm like, no, I was just so, it was still too much of an open wound for me. But then in our stake, we had something called Moroni's Quest. And it is a youth super activity like Trek. And instead of going out and doing a trek across the wilderness, they put together something to where we would reenact scenes from the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
And, dress up like Nephites, go up into the mountains and the whole nine. And it was such a all hands on deck moment for the stake that the stake president wanted us to have a kind of a kickoff fireside that the whole stake was going to come to. So that they could know, like, here's what's going to go into Moroni's Quest, and you want your kids to be there, and it's going to be a great thing. So that was the purpose of that fireside. And they approached me and said, "Hey, would you do a musical number for this?" And and during this hiatus in music, I would not shy away from accompanying the choir, doing musical numbers. I still had the talent. I didn't want to just throw away the piano. It was more the creation side that I was scared of.
Okay.
And so they asked me to do this musical number. I'm like, all right. And so I'm thinking, like, what songs can I mash up? Like Army of Helaman and The Iron Rod. And I tried to do some things. I was like, this is just not working. And I had this moment, and if we were in a movie right now, the strings would start to play. And I had this moment of like, what if I wrote a song for this?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I kind of want to do that. And it was like the first time that I had like this desire to write again. And so I reached out like, hey, are you okay if I try writing a song? And they're like, sure. And so I wrote this song. And, again, Moroni's Quest was all about really trying to put your feet in the shoes or the sandals of the Nephites. And like, here's what it was like. And so I wrote the song as if I were Moroni burying the plates.
Okay.
And what I wanted to do was humanize that moment. Because we see the picture in the back of the Book of Mormon, and he's praying, and you're like, oh man, he's burying the plates. But before writing the song, I had never thought, what did that feel like for Moroni? What was it like having the fate of the plan of salvation, like the restoration, and thus the plan of salvation is in his hands, his dad's life's work, the entire history of his people. He's sworn to protect it. It's probably been a huge comfort to him as he's running from the Lamanites. I imagined him at a campfire reading through the stories of, reading King Benjamin's words and things and finding that peace that we find in the Book of Mormon. I imagine him doing that. I imagine this being his only friend in the whole world, and then burying it and never seeing it again, as far as the natural man is concerned, burying it. What was that like for him? And I imagined it was so emotional. I imagine there was stress. Like, did I bury it good enough? Like, we can't let anybody find this. And who is ever going to find this to be able to translate this, And maybe the Lord had shown him Joseph Smith in the future, but we don't know for sure. We just know that he was trusting God. But the human part of him, what did that feel like? And so I really got into that mindset, and I put my hands on the keys, and this song just came out. And it was a writing experience that I had never had before. I hit these chords and I start singing and all like tears are flowing down because I'm like I'm feeling like Moroni, and this song just burst out of me. The lyrics I was just writing and and it took me about a week to kind of tweak things a little bit to structure wise and okay, melody wise, but ultimately it came out in this huge rush. And I was like, oh, that was awesome. And so I perform it at this stake function, and I got really great feedback. People, were crying and they really enjoyed it. And I was like, that was a great experience. And I was, but still there was this hesitation of like,
Yeah.
okay, that was a good experience for this purpose. And all right, that's good. It was like a good first date.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. We're not going on a second date. This is a
Yeah,
first date. This is a one-time deal.
exactly. And then 2 weeks later, so we were all a part of Moroni's quest as well, like with characters too. Like we had to practice with the youth. My character, I was Himni, one of the sons of Mosiah, and so we're
Mhm.
practicing. And we've got the youth there, and this girl came up to me. She's probably 14 or 15, and she says, "You're brother Jacob's, right?" And I say, "Yeah." And she's like, "You're the one who did that song." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And she's like, "I want to thank you for writing that song." She said, "I did not want to go to this thing, dressing up like a Nephite, sleeping in the mountains for 3 days. It was the last thing I wanted to do. And I've been fighting my parents this whole time. I'm not doing this." And she's like, "Until I heard that song." And when I heard that song, my mind instantly changed. And I am so excited to go to this. And she's like, "I just want to thank you for writing it because there's no way I would go to this without that song." And for me, I was like, "Thank you." And they're like,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
just like because of this huge flood of realization came to me that said, "This is why you were given this talent. This is why you went through the whole bit of wanting to perform and wanting to create and wanting to be on stage and all these other things that you've wanted. It wasn't to be a rock star and to win
Mhm.
Grammys and to be on the road 365 days out of the year. It was so that you could affect people in a way that is spiritually moving and important." And it came to me in a rush, like the first time that I felt the spirit, at least as a teenager, as I'm trying to find my own testimony. The first time I had felt that was during a musical number at a fire and at a youth conference, and
Mhm.
somebody played this song, and waves of the spirit came over me, and I had forgotten that. I had forgotten the spiritual impact that music can have on people, and that it had on me. And so I was like, okay, like things came into focus, at least to a certain degree,
Yeah.
where the Lord's like, okay, get back into this. This is your voice. This is the talent. And you were given this to spread the gospel, to gather Israel, to build Zion. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, he hasn't said, okay, here's a step by step process of how that happens, but
Right.
it was a very